Our topic today, Greg, you're up the bat to start. You're a data hub on ESG data, so can you tell us about the topic of how can ESG performance drive financial performance?
Nice to meet you all. Just to complete the backstory behind Weefin, we are actually four co-founders. One that was working in the IT, one at the regulator directly, one in an ESG team, and myself as a quant. And we all worked in the finance industry with ESG data. But we are all facing the same issue, actually, that ESG's data quality is pretty poor today. It's hard to run an ESG strategy. And we saw that there is a lack of technology for big investors so that they can scale their ESG strategy. So Weefin is about that and how it's linked to the question with the financial performance and ESG. Well, first number to start to dig into that topic. Actually, 64% of the large investors, C-level, would consider ESG is a key part of their strategy to develop their business. 64%. But at the same time, 50% of these C-level would tell you that they are currently struggling with ESG data. And that's quite a paradox that at the same time, you are seeing that ESG is the one topic that you want to invest more, but you are struggling. And so typically, we wanted to solve that with our platform. And we can see that today, there's many different ESG that are developed. So back to your question, ESG can take many names: impact, climate tech, sustainability. And the way you are implemented that can be very different. You can have strategies where you are like looking at one or two KPI, doing the very minimum job today. And sustainability could be your core value. It could be the heart of your investment strategy. We have like good example of
left and right
of professionals here that are doing that. So is ESG bringing performance in the general case or just in specific strategies? Well, to answer that question, I propose today that we count. And we count the number of strategies that works, and we count the number of strategies that do not work. And if you do that, actually, you are close to be an academics working in ESG, and they did that job 2,000 times. So ESG started to develop actually in the 70s in the US first. And since 1970s, more than 2,000 academic studies this link in between ESG and performance. And the results are that 60% of these academic studies find a positive link in between performance and ESG. And only 10% actually find the opposite result.
And 30% cannot tell.
Yes, 30% would tell you that it's really neutral, which is quite a good result, actually. And so the answer is yes. But if it's not 100%, it means that it's yes, but you have to do it well. You have like to do ESG well. And how are you doing ESG well? Well, ESG will help you, ESG data will help you to do two things, actually, to generate performance. Avoid extreme risk. So we are telling here to avoid Orpea, to avoid things like the Volkswagen scandal a few years ago, to ensure that you have the appropriate risk framework, and actually you are completing that with ESG. And ESG can help as well to generate performance in the long term. So that's what the academic studies are showing. And in the long term, we mean that the bet that the investor is taking are going to be aligned with the long term and what the society will become tomorrow. So it means that you want to seek business models that are aligned to tomorrow's world. For example, an oil and gas company should do a real transition now and consider the future and not only today. So actually, if we summarize, ESG is just another level of conversation that you are bringing at the table as an investor, even in the listed markets. So with this new information, you can better understand the strategy of the companies you've invested in, and hence, if you use it well, you can generate performance. The opposite way, if you if you don't look at ESG data, you're actually a bit blinded today. You're a bit blinded, and you're destroying value because you're not like considering the full set of information that you can have as an investor. And so I think that's typically where ESG is today. Doing ESG can bring you performance, but we are sure that not doing ESG is a suicide today in the market. And typically, if you look at regulations, if you look at what's done today in SFDR, SFDR and the other regulation have helped a bit to develop ESG, but what's sure is that they've made irrelevant the fact to avoid ESG and not to do that. So I think that's where we are in the public markets today.
Who do you rely to, and where does software come into play?
Yeah, maybe I can jump on that. Actually, because one of the things that we discovered when we launched Weefin a few years ago, it's not so far ago, like in 2018, is that we surveyed all the ESG teams working in the liquid market, and we discovered that roughly 80% of their time was actually focused on ESG data management. Like you have very fancy metrics that you need to develop to invest. We already talked about that, like a lot of information that needs to be sorted to use the right information and then to develop the product. And this takes time, a lot of time. Actually, we saw that to develop the right software on that market so that ESG can be deployed at scale for billions of assets, you need really to work on the data quality. And so there's a question of coverage, having the right coverage with the right data set. Question of freshness of the data. It's not because it's like the liquid market that you have a very fresh data points, the carbon footprint of the company of 3 months ago or something like that. Sometimes companies will publish and the next year they will completely change the referential. You don't know if it's the same number, and you need to assess that. And accuracy, and it's like really a hard job. I remember last year we did a proof of concept for a huge bank, which became clients after, and they had like 4 different data providers just for the carbon footprint. So you could compare the metrics of these 4 providers for the same company. And remember a case where you had 3 providers that all agreed on the same data point, and only one was different. And this was actually the one that was the right one, because 1 month ago you had an information published by the company. They acquired a new part of the production process of this company, and the scope of the carbon footprint rise a lot. It went from scope 3 to scope 1 actually. And so this is really small details that can make investment super hard. So that's things like typically where our technology would have value, or where one of the difficulty of the listed mass market is.
Thank you.
Yep. Totally. So this story is typically the story of all investors in the liquid market. Actually, on our side as well, we started with data and then came up with the calculation. As Jean-Guillaume said, you have very tricky numbers, so you have to add the right calculation with a full transparency, otherwise you're making mistakes. But then you need to do something with your data. And sometimes it means engaging companies, using the data to engage companies, to force them to change. So ESG is as well all about processes. And so very recently in the platform, we've added like interfaces so that people can collaborate, and the risks, the compliance, in the investment portfolio team, the reporting teams all collaborate to bring ESG real. And bring ESG real as an investment manager is typically use information to change the company you're invested in, either by engaging them or pushing them to do best. So we're not doing AI ourselves, because we are very focused on the mission of Weefin, which is to bring an operational system to do ESG real. So for now, we don't need necessarily AI for that. I do think that there's a couple of use cases where AI would be useful for ESG, either for gathering ESG data or for helping maybe the qualitative parts of ESG to be done quicker. But at the end of the day, you need to look at the data, to engage company, and that's things where like you need humans to do that as well.
A big round of applause for our speakers.